Hello everybody, and welcome to the Deeper Desert. In this new series, I will be taking you on a bit of a, let's say, walkthrough of the Deep Desert, which is the endgame PvP/PvE zone for Dune Awakening. As it currently stands, 99% of it is PvP, but as most of you are probably aware, the developers are changing part of the Deep Desert to have some some PvE areas, so some of the more end game minerals and stuff like that you'll be able to get as a PvE player without having to worry about griefers or PvP or anything like that. So as it currently stands, we're still the same. We're still pretty much 99% PvP, and there is a small amount of PvE areas where you can't be attacked, where you can build yourself a little base and things like that. But yeah, this is a brand new series. It's basically going to be a little bit of a walkthrough, a little bit of a, what's the best way I can say this, guide to the Deep Desert and how it all works when you finally get there. Now, with the Deep Desert, you can pretty much go to it straight away. There's nothing preventing you. Well, there is something preventing you. The main thing that prevents you from going to the Deep Desert straight away is the fact that you need a scout or an ornithopter of some kind to get there. Scout will probably be your first one, although if you have farmed up enough and built yourself an assault, I'd probably recommend taking that, because you will, at some point, when you're in the Deep Desert, you will want to be building yourself a base out there. Now, there are many different mechanics to the Deep Desert that you'll have to be aware of. I will try and go through the majority of them and cover them in as much detail as possible and hopefully showcase them to you as well. But one of the main things, the first thing that you need to be aware of with the Deep Desert is that it is on a weekly reset. So you all probably would have seen it by now. Even if you haven't actually been to the Deep Desert yet, you probably will have seen the warnings appearing on your server. Every week you'll have something coming up called the Coriolis Storm. Usually when you first see it, I believe your first warning comes up, is it 12 or 6 hours before the apex of it hits? And yeah, basically what happens is everything that you've uncovered on the world map, so our server's Coriolis Storm hit, I think it was yesterday, so probably about 12, 18 hours ago in real life, and so most of it I haven't uncovered yet. I haven't really played that much since the reset. I think the 3 zones that I keep uncovered every time it's happened so far is Hagar Basin South, your eastern and your western Vermilius Gap. And then obviously I've explored some of this part here, the Mesa Tariel, because this is where my main base is, my home base. Excuse me. Now, another thing to be aware of as well is that I am here in my current home base. This is a very roughly thrown together base that I built on this server, because this is not my main server. This is not the same server that I'm doing the playthrough on, and I am hoping to run this series alongside the playthrough as well. But yeah, this base and this server is not the same one as my home world, the one that I'm running the playthrough on. You can probably tell by the fact that I have 115 or 118 ping constantly. I am playing on an American server with a whole bunch of friends, so this base was just something I kind of roughly threw together. It doesn't have all of the production capabilities that I would need at the current stage of the game that I play in. I'm missing a lot of the higher level machinery, but I do have a guild base in this main world, which is just to the north here. We've actually got 2 up here, but the main one is this northern one right there. And then we also have a guild base that we build in the Deep Desert every week. Now, what I was explaining about the Coriolis Storm is that it resets everything every week. And when I say everything, it's not the entire map, but one thing you might have noticed is that certain resources and stuff like that will get moved around. Apologies. Wow, that was a spice plume right next to my base. I kind of want to go and see that. Let's get up there, check it out. Yeah, that was literally right next to our base. I do like the spice explosions, they're pretty cool. So certain resources, certain positions of resources will be moved around in the main overworld, but in terms of things like the wrecks and the quest areas, and not that base, but say all the different towns like Mendi's Gate, Stash, your trading posts like the Anvil, the Quartermaster and Riftwatch for Harkonnen, and I believe the Atreides one is up here, Helios Gate. These won't get moved around, so your main POIs won't get moved, but a lot of the resources will. I've actually struggled finding granite in my current base location. It took me a while to actually build this base, but I have found a whole bunch of them here now, so there is some stuff that gets moved around quite a lot. With the apex of the Coriolis Storm when it hits every week. the main thing the Coriolis Storm is for the deep desert, which it resets pretty much everything in the deep desert. Every location, every POI, all of it gets moved around in the PvP part of the deep desert. In the few weeks that we've played so far, my guild that I'm with, we've all tried to work out if it actually does change much when it comes to the PvE areas in the deep desert, but we haven't really noticed that much of a change, and we've built our base in almost the same location every single time, so I think there's certain areas of the deep desert that don't get changed that much. Again, the things like the POIs and the resources and stuff will get moved around, but the actual layout of that first part of the deep desert doesn't get moved, or at least we don't think it does. So we have built our base in the same place majority of the time because we've got a pretty good location. So yeah, the apex of the Coriolis Storm resets everything, removes everything, and it also destroys your base because the Coriolis Storm, I believe, is a level 5 storm, a level 5 sandstorm. It destroys everything, it removes everything. So the way you have to be in the deep desert is that you can build a base there and you can take advantage of the bonuses of being in the deep desert, but the issue with that is that every week before the apex hits, you want to take your base down and bring it back to the overworld, otherwise you'll lose everything. So yeah, you need to be aware of that when you're going to the deep desert. And one thing I would recommend is that it might be worth, with the deep desert, if you don't want to spend all of your time there, one thing it might be worth doing is only picking certain weeks where you actually have a base in the deep desert and do all of your production there, and then for the rest of the time keep your main base in your overworld and have your machines all here and do all of your farming of items and stuff like that, and then take it all to the deep desert when you actually want to take advantage of the bonuses, because there are bonuses for being in the deep desert. Okay, so start of this series, probably going to be about half an hour long this first episode. I'm going to do a few episodes. It's not going to be a long running series, but we'll do a few and I'll try and showcase as much as possible. I will build my own base there just to kind of showcase it to you and show you the bonuses and benefits and stuff that you can get from being in the deep desert, and I will also do a little bit of exploration. You can see here I've got my survey probes, so I'm going to do a bit of surveying whilst we're there. That is the other thing as well, as you've noticed, that I've completed most of the game so far. I've still got quite a bit of story left to do, but in terms of the apex of the Coriolis Storm, it resets all of the covered parts of your map, so you do have to go around and survey everything every week, which does get a little bit tedious, I will say. But you can always just use a map that someone else has made. You can maybe find them online. There's probably certain websites that have been set up already that showcase the map to you, so you don't have to worry about doing a full survey yourself every week, because I believe there's 81 zones in the deep desert. I believe it's a 9x9 grid. So yeah, you don't want to have to make and use 81 survey probes every week, which would be a bit tedious after a while. As you can also see in my inventory, I've grabbed a few basic crafting components. Granite was the main thing. I do also have, in this next room here, you will have seen it as we came in earlier, I am Harkonnen as well, by the way. You've probably guessed by my still suit and my ship. Our guild is a Harkonnen aligned guild, but I do have my ship here, and on the ship I have an inventory storage which has, again, a whole bunch of other crafting components. I've also put my heavy darts in here because they're quite heavy, although I wonder if I can sort them with those. There we go. So yeah, I've got quite a bit of granite, fuel cells, copper, some aluminum, fuel, or what, even more fuel cells, cobalt paste, steel, salvage metal, and plant fibers. These are just kind of the basics to build the beginnings of a base in the deep desert. I don't plan on building a huge base. I think for the first few episodes, while I'm showcasing the base building and stuff like that, I'll have my own base, but then after a while I will just shift the series to our main guild base that we've got there, so I can showcase the higher level machinery and the bonuses and stuff like that. But yeah, I've got a bunch of basic stuff with me. Right, so we have our starting materials. I'm wearing a still suit because the heat level in the deep desert is probably the highest in the game, so you are going to want a decent level still suit. I am using the mercenary one, which I believe is the duraluminum set. Let's quickly double check that if I can. Still suit. Mercenary, which is, yep, is the duraluminum set. So this is pretty much the pre-deep desert set that you can get. This is the one I'd recommend taking to the deep desert unless you had a unique one, which was slightly better. But yeah, we've got a still suit for storing water. We've got Mark V shield and power pack, and we've also got a full suspensor belt. Now with suspensor belts, I believe it's down to personal choice. It's what you prefer using. I prefer the full suspensor belt because you can kind of double dip in the way that you can use it as slow fall, but you can also use it to kind of fling yourself off into great distances. As you can see, we're going to take some fall damage. Oh, use the fall belt, and it kind of slows you down. So that's the one I prefer using, but honestly, it's personal choice. It's whichever you prefer using. I do also have my tile cut array. Now, this cut array is a unique cut array that you can get in this overworld. I will quickly show you the 2 areas you'll need to run in order to get it. It's not that one. Where is it? There it is. So Imperial Testing Station number 71 is the main one that you'll use. There is also... Where is it? It was up here somewhere. They might have moved it. I might have to explore for that one. Usually it's northeastern. Where are you? Or have you moved? There it is, the nest. So you have Imperial Testing Station number 71 and the nest, which are 2 areas that you can run that will have a constellation chest at the end of them. That's one of the big loot chests that you will usually find the special like spice infused dust in them, and you'll get some recipes, and you also get some quite high-end crafting materials. If you run both of those, the chest at the end has a chance to spawn the recipe for the tile cut array. Now the main reason you want this one is because you don't have to go to the deep desert, and you can already mine the 2 end game materials, which is titanium and stravidium. You only get 48 of each, so it's not the most efficient in terms of mining for the end game stuff, but to get started in the deep desert, it's definitely very useful, and I think it's cheaper to make than the actual Mark 6 cut array, so it's pretty good. I quite like using it. I do also have a couple of weapons on me. I've got Cope, which is a pretty insane single-shot pistol, well, 3-shot pistol. It's a semi-automatic, holds 3 rounds, but it does 306 damage per shot and increased headshot damage, so it's pretty mad. This has been my end-game pistol for a long time now, and it's been really good. And then I also have Fade's Drinker, which is I think it's the top-level blood drinker knife that you can use. So this is just a basic dagger that you can drink blood, or you can drain blood from enemies, and I also have this here, Baron's Blood Bag, which is, again, an end-game blood container. It's just because me and my guild have been farming the deep desert since we pretty much got on the game. And then I have a few other things. I do also have a deciliter John, which is completely full of water. You don't have to use the deciliter Johns, you can just have a standard liter John, but with the deep desert having such a high heat level, which means you're going to lose your hydration quicker, and we're going to have to do a whole bunch of building when we first get there, especially if it's daytime. I just wanted the extra water just to cover myself, just to cover all the bases so I wasn't dehydrating and risking death, although I could just go to the guild base. I do also have a construction tool, obviously. We have survey probe launcher, obviously, to go with the survey probes, and then we've got our vehicle backup tool, which we can store our scout in when we are building, so it's not taking any durability damage. And then some other basic bits, welding wire, just to repair things if they need repairing. Heal kits, obviously you'll want those. You probably won't get into any kind of combat, but you never know, if you take fall damage, you might want to heal yourself up. And that's pretty much it for what I have on me. That's another spice explosion. That is the 3rd one I've seen since I've logged in today. That is interesting. Can we see this one? Not with jumping skills like that, we won't. Where is it? Just want to see that second one. I'm not even sure where that one came from. Probably over here somewhere. We have quite a lot of spice plumes on open sands. There's one over here somewhere, a spice field. Small one, but there is one there. Anyway. So yeah, we have all of our materials ready to go. We have some of the basic components for building our starting base. So let's get in our scout and head over there. Now you will get that prompt every single time you log in, every single time you get into a new vehicle, you will get the prompt to reset your respawn point. Completely up to you if you want to do that or not. I do it just as a standard, just to make sure that I have a respawn point set, but you do have to be aware that if you set your respawn point and then store your scout in your vehicle backup tool, I think your respawn point gets removed from the scout, so yeah, just be aware of that. Okay, so we're in our scout, and we want to head to the deep desert. We're ready, we've completed most of the game, or most of the overworld game. We do have a few contracts left, but they're smaller ones that are not massively important in terms of the story. So you want to head to the deep desert. Now, to get to the deep desert, you need to get to the edge of the map. So this map here, Haggard Basin South, you've got Western Vermilius, all of this is one kind of giant rectangle of world map. And then you can see around the edges these kind of red markers here that look a bit like quicksand markers or drum sand markers. This is the edge of the world. When you get close to the edge of the world, you'll notice the kind of blue shimmering shield. Looks a bit like a pentashield in a way. You technically can't fly through that, but that is how you get to the world map in order to travel to the deep desert. I will explain the world map when we get there as well. Just going to quickly double check something before we set off. Yep, perfect. So yeah, you need to head to the edge of one of these maps. There are certain areas, so you can see that with these kind of rock formations here and here, you won't be able to really fly over those without risking most of your fuel. So you want to kind of head for these gaps here, where it's kind of covered by sandstorm or sand, so you can't really see those, but you want to head to these edges here with those gaps so that you can actually fly through them. That is currently where I believe I'm pointing myself. Yep, that gap right there is where we're going to head. I'm just going to get some more altitude. We're going to risk the increased fuel consumption, but we should be okay. And then we're going to glide our way over there. Now, one thing I did forget to check was... Oh, I did bring a fuel cell. Fantastic. We might as well use that now to quickly refuel. There we go, 83%. Not fantastic, but it's okay. We have our guild base nearby, so we can always pop there if we desperately need vehicle fuel. So yeah, I'll be able to showcase the blue shimmering wall once we actually get there. We just have to glide our way over. Just so you're aware, I am flying a Mark 6 ornithopter, managed vehicle. Mark 6 Scout. That is the reason why I am currently gliding at 180 kilometers, and why the general movement of the ship is between 100 to 110 kilometers an hour. It's pretty fast as the Mark 6 Scout. Really nice. Right, come on, blue shimmering wall. We should be able to see it by now, but I think it's very bright, so it might be quite difficult to see until we get really close to it. There it is. Right, let's stop before we get there. So, blue shimmering wall, you can see it there. So, you need to approach this in order to get to the deep desert. But in order to get to the deep desert, you have to travel to it on the world map. Now, I have a couple of issues with the world map, mainly the fact being that you're zoomed in really, really close when you're on the world map, and you can't zoom out very far, so it's a bit of a pain to traverse sometimes. But, I suppose that's just me being a little nitpicky. But yes, you need to approach this blue shimmering shield. Now, you can just glide straight into it. But one thing you need to be aware of is that it's a solid object, so if you glide straight into it, you will just collide with it and start sliding down. A little bit like something, I don't know, like a cartoon of something running into a wall and then sliding down it. It's pretty much the same thing. But you don't deal damage to your ship, you don't have to worry about it. Collision damage doesn't seem to be a thing in Dune Awakening. I'm not sure if the developers plan to put it in or to make it a thing, but you can fly face first into this rock here and it wouldn't damage your ship. Here you go, I'll even showcase it to you. Manage vehicle, let's just have a look at... Cockpit is 100%, 87 for the wings, 100% for those two. Let's just go straight into that. Into this wall here, and I'll show you the durability doesn't go down. Just trying to hit the floor first. So we should still be on about 86. 87% on the wings, 100% on the rest. Although the scout wings just went down. So yeah. You can collide with this blue shimmering wall. It's not going to destroy your ship. You will also get a prompt that comes up asking if you want to go to the world map. So you can always accept that, and you'll still end up hitting the shimmering shield, but again, you won't do damage to your ship, so don't worry about it. But what a lot of people prefer to do, because obviously they don't want to, the idea of smashing their ship into a blue shield, is you can just get really close to it and then just hover next to it, and you will get... There it is, travel confirmation. Are you sure you want to travel to the world map? Then confirm or cancel. Obviously we want to confirm. It will put you into a loading screen. If you are on a busy server, you might even get put into a queue. I've seen people that have posted images of 250 people plus queues in order to get into the deep desert, because I believe the deep desert is made up of multiple different features from servers, so you could end up having hundreds of people in the deep desert. Okay, so this is your overworld. This is Haga Basin. Oh, sorry, this is our world map, and this is Haga Basin. This is the main part of the game where you spend most of your time. You will also have, I believe over this way, you do also have some fuel deposits and water deposits. I'll explain those shortly. Here it is. You will also have Arrakis here, which is kind of like the home, like the main city, like the hub of the... what are they called? I can't remember their name now. The Atreides faction. And then you also have, somewhere down south here, that's a water deposit, Harko Village, which is the Harkonnen home faction city. And then, if we go back to Haga Basin, you can see someone flying off there already. It is just slightly northwest, so it's basically north-northwest. If you just drag your view up there, here is the deep desert. Look how bloody huge it is. And you just have to left-click to get your ship to start moving, which I'll show you right now. So let's just zoom in so we can see our ship. This is our ship here. This is the scout that I'm in. If I click around, left-click around the map, I can move it. And one thing you can notice as well, I'll just zoom a bit further, you have your water bar here on the left hand side, this blue bar, and your fuel bar here. So these are two bars that you need to pay attention to when you're on the world map. You don't really need to. If you're adept at using the world map and travelling to places, you'll never have to pay attention to those two, but I imagine they're going to add a lot more zones into the game and going to make these two bars relevant. And the water and the fuel gauges. But if I just fly around a little bit and drain down the fuel gauge, I'll show you how that works. So you can see the fuel gauge is going down there as I move around. Let me find a water deposit here, so you can watch the blue gauge on my scout. So what you have to do with the water deposit is just fly into it. You can watch a little animation of your scout landing, and then your water gauge will fill. And then if we find a fuel deposit just over here, and do the same thing. Just wait for our scout to make its way over. You do have to fly inside the circle. And then we can watch our fuel gauge refill. And there we go. So yeah, that's how you refill those two. Now, these two are not connected with your overworld fuel or water. So if you're full hydration when you get in your ship and head to the world map, and then you drain the water bar on the world map down by half and then get to your destination, you don't run out of water in your main character. Your character doesn't lose any hydration. This is just this is world map specific. So again, don't worry too much about it. Same with the fuel as well. It doesn't drain the fuel batteries on your ship when you're from the overworld, when you're on the world map. It's just a world map specific thing, so it doesn't matter how low they get, as long as you get to your destination, you're absolutely fine. Right, next we need to go over the location markers, the way that you get into the world, the way that you get back into the world. So you'll notice around Haga Basin here, you have all of these different rectangles. Now these are different locations on the map. It works a bit like a compass, so if you wanted to go back to Haga Basin at the northern edge of the map, you could just enter this top box here. If you wanted to go back to the starting area down in the south, you could enter through this bottom box here, which I'll quickly show you now. As you fly into that purple end of the box, it will give you another travel confirmation. Click confirm, you'll get another loading screen. And then I will show you that we've come in at the bottom end of Haga Basin rather than the northern end where we left. Here we go, Haga Basin South, Scavenger Territory. Here we are, the southern end of the map, rather than, so we left up here. This was the bit that we left at. And here is where I've come in. So, yeah. One other thing to be aware of, this happens the same when you travel to the deep desert as well. When you arrive, you are out of your ship on the sand, and this is open sand as well, so the worm is attracted to me right now. So, always get straight into your ship and take off. Anyway, let's head south back to that shield wall again and head out, because we are not in Haga Basin South, we are going to the deep desert. There you go, you can kind of see the blue shimmering shield in front of me there, of the edge of the map. And we'll also hit it. There you go, and I'm sliding down it. Don't take any damage, but it just looks a bit silly. And this is the same on the deep desert as well, although you will notice on the deep desert you only have 3. And it is literally just do you want to spawn on the eastern side, on the middle, or on the western side of the southern part of the deep desert. So I've decided that I want to start on the eastern side, so I'm going to head for this one up here. Now I am left clicking to make sure that the ship or the scout is headed in this direction. It does take a few seconds, but you can kind of hear the noise of the scout as it's flying along. Okay, so click on the purple part of the box if you can hover around in that part. Sometimes you can hover around the clear box, but I always head straight for the purple bit, and then you get another travel confirmation. Are you sure you want to travel to the deep desert? Nothing survives the Coriolis storm, so the game loves to give you heads up about the damage that the Coriolis storm does in the apex of the storm, how much it destroys, it takes everything. Click on confirm. And here we are, entering the deep desert. And there we are. We are in the deep desert. We have heat level 4 and radiation level 0, and you can see there that I entered sector A8, which is this here. So this is how big the deep desert is. You have all of these sectors. You have A7, A8, A9. You've got 6. It goes all the way down to 1 on the western side. And it goes from A all the way up to I believe. So yeah, A to I, and then 1 to 9. So it's a 9 by 9 box. Most of Sector A, parts of Sector B are PvE zones. So these kind of rocky areas here where it's not open sand, these bits of sand here looks like the worm could get to you. It can't. These are closed off kind of PvE areas, so you don't even have to worry about the worm. These are PvE zones, so you don't have to worry about those. But in the A sector, these open bits of sand here, they are PvP zones. And as soon as you leave and you get onto this open sand here in Sector B and C and higher up, that's all PvP. Again, in an upcoming patch, it will be changing. There will be certain PvE areas in the world, in the deep desert, so you don't have to worry about players being able to kill you. But I can imagine that you'll still have to fly across some PvP zones in order to get there, unless they make them very early on in the deep desert. And then with the deep desert as well, the deeper you go, oops, wrong button. The deeper you go into the deep desert, the harder it gets, and the more materials or the higher level materials you can get from that area itself. So deep desert is something that you have to be, it's quite a risk being here. So we have arrived in the deep desert. We are in the safe area. You can see I'm walking around on sand here, but we're not getting any kind of worm marker or indication. I believe my guild base is, if I zoom back in, can't really see it right now. Ah, it's right there. So we've built it here on this rocky section in B5. For the longest time, or since the game came out, I believed that it was only Sector A that was covered as PvE, and then Sector B and beyond was not. It was all PvP. I'm wrong. These rocky parts here that you can build on, they are also PvE, so you are protected on those bits, because we built our base there and it seems to be fine so far. But this uncovered part here between A6 and A7, this is PvP, so I believe it's all the rocky parts here that are that's a PvE, and then any of the open sand parts are PvP. We do also have, if I have any uncovered to show you, don't think I have because we're not really close enough yet. There are POIs here as well, so you will see downed ships. There you go, there's a wreck there, a shipwreck which will have, this is a PvP zone, so even if you're in the PvE area, you'll still be PvP if you go to this wreck. There are industrial or research facilities and stuff like that as well, which you can get some pretty high level recipes from. They are also located on the deep desert, but they are very, very hard. My guild and I have run a fair few of them, and we struggled when we first started. We're doing okay with them now because we have higher level weapons, and we've also got some better armor than just still suits. One thing I would recommend in the deep desert when you're running research facilities and shipwrecks and stuff like that, get some armor. Don't bother just using your still suit. Even if you've got the top level still suit in the game called the Fatigue still suit, I still wouldn't recommend it. I would still say that an armor set is going to be better for you, because it just, the damage reduction alone is going to save you against a lot of the NPC combat, especially deep in the deep desert. Anyway, so we're here. Let's have a bit of a fly around, shall we? One of the first things I want to do before we even start building our base, which I'll probably start doing in the next episode, we only have a couple of minutes left, is I will start surveying some of this area so we can see what we've got around us whilst we're picking a good location for a base. So I'm just going to land up here, pull out my survey beacon. I'm hoping that we're high enough. We're not. We need another 56 meters. We might have to fly over to that rock there. Oh, there is a sandstorm, so that's one of the things to be aware of as well. There are sandstorms in the deep desert. I'm actually quite concerned that's going to hit me. Although we're not getting any warnings for the sandstorm, so I think we should be okay. It looks like, oh, actually no, it looks like it's heading, easterly, so we should be good. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It would not be a very good thing for this series for me to encounter a sandstorm the very first time I come here. So one of the things I was talking about at the very start of the episode that I kind of briefly touched on is that as soon as you have yourself an ornithopter, you can come to the deep desert straight away. You don't have to have completed 90% of the game. You don't have to worry too much about having the highest level armor or anything like that. As a matter of fact, the NPC combat, the PvE, like melee and ranged combat, if you're good enough with a melee weapon, you can pretty much take them on with a basic knife if you wanted to. The fights would take forever and you'd have to deal... Oh, overheated. Now we're in B8 now, so we're just a little bit too far north. Oh well, we'll fire a survey beacon off anyway. But yeah, the fights will take forever because you're not dealing as much damage as you could be with, say, a Fade's Drinker, but you could, if you're good enough at melee combat, you could take them on with basic weapons and armor. You don't have to farm up with all the highest level stuff. There's quite a lot of aluminum here, which I'm happy about. There's 3 nodes right there. There's a 4th over there. There we go. Survey report for Sector B8. What do we have out here? Nothing but a bunch of rock and sand. So there's nothing special in terms of POIs, but I do want to head a little bit further south. Need to be careful because our fuel consumption is massively increased right now with the fact that we are above 750 meters altitude, which is not good. The annoying part is I don't really think there's very many areas I can go to scan for this area. Let's try... which rock were we on? We're going to try this one up here. It looks a bit higher up. This one looks higher, actually. Oh, steady, 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 steady. There we go. Trying to fall off. Whoa! There we go. Oh, no, don't die. There we go. 65 meters, so no, that was lower. Let's try these rocks at the back up here. Should be able to head up to there, I believe. Can we land on the shelf here? Yes, we can. Please tell me we're high enough. Oh, no, 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 no. Grappling hook, save me. There we go. Grappling hook is one of the best abilities in the game. I love it. Right. Oh, 7 meters? Are you kidding me? Right. A little bit higher up then, shall we? Probably didn't need to take the ship for this, but whatever. I usually say as a standard, 700 meters altitude is probably the best to, like, aim for. There we go. Are we still in A8? Yes, we are. Now, another thing to be aware of, when you're out in the deep desert, you haven't got as platforms and rock formation stuff as high as this, so you might think, how are we supposed to survey out in the deep desert when the platforms aren't anywhere near as high and the altitude isn't as high? They've lowered the requirements for the survey probe in the deeper desert areas to scan and to survey. So you don't have to worry too much about not being high enough, you can see them. There's a checkpoint there and an entry point there. Oh, that's the entry point where we came in. Oh, we have an Imperial testing station over there, so we do have some high-level parts and some recipes we can go farm. So yeah, these are our 2 zones. I'm thinking of building around this area here, just so we've got easy access to the actual deep desert sand. Yeah, I like that quite a lot so far. So yeah, this is the deep desert. Now, one thing I will also say is that I believe there are websites out there. I have already briefly covered this. Is that another? That's the wreck. There are websites out there that do uncover the map every week, and then I believe the person who does it takes screenshots of the different sectors and uploads them to a website. So you don't have to come and do this every week. I certainly don't. When it comes to the deep desert, I only really uncover the parts that we actually need. So I believe if we go out on a big titanium run, or if we go and mine some stravidium, or if we're going to go and take the sandcrawler out and do a big farm of sand, of spice sand, I don't bother uncovering the whole thing. I don't take a survey probe with me and survey probe everything. I just don't see the point. It changes every week, so you're basically just wasting a bunch of time at the start of each week having to do that. But I know that it can be frustrating to find some of the high-level areas. One thing I will say is that in the deep desert sand, or the sandy areas of the deep desert, you can tell here, there's no way you're going to drive across that in a buggy or a sand bike, unless you've got the Mark 6, like, top-level sand bike, which can outrun the worm, which is not for very long, I will admit. This is just massive open sand, and these boxes are huge as well in terms of, they're probably about 5 to 10 kilometers each. Like, the deep desert is a lot bigger than the overworld. You need to be aware of that. It is something that will take a long time to traverse. I believe going up to, say, about halfway up to it is about 10, maybe not 5 to 10 kilometers each section, but I would say probably between 2 and 4-ish. I know that about halfway up is about 10,000 kilometers, so it's quite a big map. It's a very, very big map. It does take quite a while to traverse across it. So you need to be aware of that when traveling around the deep desert. And also the fact that you can't really take any ground vehicles unless, of course, you have a carrier, or if you, say, detach all of your buggy or sandbike parts and store them in your backpack and then fly over there. But then, obviously, if you try to gather anything or take a storage and store anything in there, you won't be able to fly it back or drive it back without risking the worm eating you. So the deep desert is very ornithopter orientated. Assault, Scout, you probably want an Assault with an inventory on it for the extra carry weight. Scout, I would probably take rocket pods if you want to defend yourself in the PvP zones, or just take the inventory like I have here and do a bit of hauling. But the Scout inventory size is pretty small, so it can be a bit difficult. But yeah, I don't bother exploring every single bit. Because we are part of a guild, people will go out and do their own things on their own, and then when we do big organised guild events, we kind of already know where the locations are for the rocky formations. So in the deeper desert sands here, you can see these little rocks up here. There are rock formations in the deep desert, in these very late game sectors, but they're few and far between. They're quite small, and they usually have a purpose. There'll be capture points for the Landsraad houses, or they will have a lot of a certain material. We so far have found specific areas in the deep desert sections or sectors where you'll find one that's completely covered in titanium, or one that's completely covered in platinum, stuff like that. So you do have those there, but there is a lot of travel required to get there, and you only have your scout or your assault storage to store stuff in. So something you need to be aware of. Deep desert is a very kind of an extraction style game. You know, you kind of have to go in with a group, drop in, mine and gather everything that you need, survive, fight off any players or any PvE NPCs or anything like that. The sandworm, avoid that, things like that, and then extract outwards and get back to your base safely. But yeah, I think we're going to call episode 1 there for the time being. I don't want to start doing anything else just yet, because that will take us a bit of time. I think for our next episode, I will talk about base building and some of the bonuses that you get from being in the deep desert. So, thank you everybody for watching. I hope this has been informative, and I hope you've enjoyed. Any recommendations or any advice that you feel free to give, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.